You already know something is wrong. Not with the world, not with other people, but with how you exist inside social spaces. You felt the pause after you speak, the slight recoil when you ask a question that goes one layer deeper than expected, the way conversations thin out when you refuse to laugh at what isn't funny or agree with what doesn't hold up under basic scrutiny. You don't announce your intelligence. You don't correct people in public. But something about you disrupts the rhythm, and you've stopped pretending it's coincidence. Here's what no one tells you directly. High intelligence doesn't isolate you by accident. It isolates you by design. Social systems are not built to reward clarity. They're built to reward comfort, and the moment your mind refuses to participate in the collective agreement to not look too closely, you become a disturbance. Not a threat in the dramatic sense, just someone whose presence makes others feel observed in a way they can't articulate. The smarter you became, the fewer people stayed, and at some point you realized it wasn't about being difficult or arrogant. It was about the way you see, and what you see cannot be unseen, cannot be dumped down, and cannot be performed away. This is not a personality flaw. This is structural incompatibility, and the absence of friends is not failure. It is consequence. Long before modern psychology tried to soften this reality with terms like giftedness or social anxiety, one man understood it with brutal precision. Machiavelli never wrote about friendship the way self-help books do. He wrote about human nature as it behaves when masks come off. And when you apply his logic to the modern intelligent man, something becomes disturbingly obvious. People do not bond over truth. They bond over shared illusions. They do not seek clarity. They seek reinforcement for what they already believe. And your mind, without meaning to, refuses to give them that. What Machiavelli understood, and what changes everything once you see it, is that most human relationships are not moral arrangements. They are strategic ones. And the intelligent man disrupts strategy simply by existing. Framework 1. Social bonds are built on agreement to not threaten worldview. Machiavelli observed that people align with those who make them feel safe, validated, and superior. Friendship, in his terms, is not an emotional bond. It is a mutual agreement to not challenge each other's perception of reality. The moment you break that agreement, intentionally or not, you become a liability. The intelligent man does not need to dominate conversations or publicly correct others to violate this contract. His presence alone does it. He asks questions that probe beneath the surface. He notices contradictions that others rely on to stay emotionally stable. He hesitates where others follow reflectively. And to the group, hesitation reads as disloyalty. This is why intelligent men often experience rejection, not as open hostility, but as gradual disappearance. Invitations slow down, messages go unanswered. Inside jokes stop including you. There is no dramatic confrontation because the group doesn't see you as an enemy. They see you as something harder to manage, a disturbance to equilibrium. And Machiavelli would say this response is entirely predictable. People do not eliminate what they fear openly. They remove it from proximity. Silence is safer than confrontation. Distance requires no explanation. What collapses here is the illusion that intelligence makes you more relatable. In reality, it makes you less legible. High IQ men think in abstractions, long-term consequences, and probabilistic outcomes. Most social interaction operates on emotional immediacy. People speak to feel, not to analyze. They share stories to bond, not to solve. When you respond with nuance instead of validation, it registers as coldness even when it's accuracy. When you refuse to exaggerate enthusiasm or mirror outrage, it feels like rejection. Machiavelli knew that appearing aligned often mattered more than being correct. In modern terms, appearing emotionally synchronized matters more than being intellectually honest. This creates a paradox. The intelligent man is often capable of deeper loyalty, more thoughtful friendship, and greater understanding than most. But the conditions required for those qualities to flourish are rare. They demand mutual awareness, mutual honesty, and mutual tolerance for discomfort. Most people are not built for that. They are built for stability, for repetition, for emotional equilibrium. When faced with someone who disrupts equilibrium simply by being themselves, they retreat. Not out of malice, out of self-preservation. Framework 2. Intelligence is power, and power destabilizes hierarchies. Machiavelli understood that intelligence is a form of power even when unspoken, and power, by its nature, threatens existing hierarchies. In any social group, there is an unspoken order. Someone leads conversations. Someone sets the emotional tone. Someone's opinions carry more weight. A highly intelligent man destabilizes this order without trying. He might not seek leadership, but others sense he could take it. He might not assert dominance, but others sense he sees through dominance. This creates unease. Machiavelli warned rulers about men like this, not because they were dangerous in intent, but because they were unpredictable. And unpredictability is the enemy of social comfort. Groups cannot function when they cannot predict how members will respond. So what happens? The group compensates. They label the intelligent man as intense, aloof, hard to read, or just not that social. Labels are tools. They simplify complexity so it can be dismissed. Once labeled, exclusion becomes easier. There is no guilt because the narrative is clear, he's just wired differently. The intelligent man often accepts this explanation himself. He internalizes it as diagnosis rather than recognizing it as a defense mechanism. But what he's actually experiencing is the group protecting itself from someone whose mind operates outside the predictable range. This isn't conscious conspiracy. It's social homeostasis. Systems remove elements that destabilize them. And intelligence that refuses to dim itself is a destabilizing element. There is another layer here. The intelligent man often sees consequences before actions unfold. He recognizes patterns of self-destruction in others early. He senses where trends lead before they arrive. This foresight makes casual bonding nearly impossible. It's difficult to laugh freely when you already see the cost. Hard to engage fully when you know how the story ends. Machiavelli would argue that this awareness, while strategically valuable, separates you from the present moment most people live in. They are playing today's game. You are already thinking 3 moves ahead. That gap becomes distance. And distance, over time, becomes isolation. Framework 3. Plain truth is punished unless it serves power. Machiavelli never advocated dishonesty for its own sake, but he understood that plain truth is rarely rewarded in social life. Truth is tolerated only when it serves someone's interest. Otherwise, it is quietly punished. The intelligent man often struggles with this not because he lacks social skills, but because his mind rejects inefficiency. Lying feels wasteful. Pretending feels heavy. So he speaks plainly or stays silent. And both choices carry cost. Most friendships survive on a certain level of mutual deception, exaggerated praise, selective silence, polite ignorance of obvious flaws. These are not moral failures. They are social lubricants. The intelligent man resists this not out of superiority, but out of cognitive friction. His mind cannot sustain what it knows to be false. This makes him exhausting to be around long term. Not because he is cruel, but because he does not perform the reassurance rituals that keep most relationships stable. Machiavelli would not tell such a man to chase friendship blindly. He would tell him to understand the terrain, to recognize that most alliances are temporary, conditional, and based on utility. Expecting unconditional companionship from a world built on perception is a strategic error. But here is the part most people miss. Machiavelli did not advocate isolation as an end state. He advocated awareness. The intelligent man without friends is not broken. He is unarmored. He sees too clearly to blend in effortlessly, but not clearly enough yet to weaponize that vision. His loneliness is not the final condition. It is the threshold, a signal that he has outgrown unconscious belonging, but has not yet mastered conscious connection. And this distinction changes everything. Because once a man understands that his isolation is structural rather than personal, something shifts. He stops begging for inclusion. He stops shrinking to fit rooms he was never meant to inhabit. He begins asking a far more dangerous question. Not what is wrong with him, but what kind of alliances are actually worth forming in a world where most bonds are built on comfort rather than clarity. Framework 4. Solitude reveals character faster than conflict. Machiavelli understood that isolation reveals what a man is made of faster than any battle. When there is no audience, no validation, no social distraction, a man is forced to confront what remains. And most men cannot bear it. They return to noise not because they love people, but because they fear themselves. They fear their thoughts when unfiltered. They fear the questions that arise when no one is there to drown them out. The intelligent man does not escape this fear. He encounters it sooner. His mind is already loud, already restless, already dissecting. When friends disappear, the internal noise does not quiet. It sharpens. And that sharpening can cut in two directions. One direction leads to resentment. The man begins viewing the world as shallow, people as inferior, relationships as inherently pointless. He mistakes pattern recognition for wisdom. He mistakes detachment for strength. This is a fatal error. Contempt weakens judgment. A man who despises others cannot influence them. And influence, not isolation, is power. The other direction is rarer and harder. The intelligent man uses solitude to refine perception rather than feed ego. He studies human behavior without hatred. He observes dynamics without needing to dominate them. He begins to understand that most people are not shallow by choice. They are constrained by fear, habit, and survival instinct. Machiavelli never hated humanity. He simply refused to romanticize it. This distinction is everything. The man who romanticizes people becomes naive. The man who hates them becomes blind. The man who understands them becomes effective. At this stage, the intelligent man begins to see why friendship failed him before. Not because people were unworthy, but because the context was wrong. He was seeking depth in places designed for comfort. He was offering honesty where reassurance was the currency. He was playing a different game on the same board and wondering why the rules kept punishing him. Machiavelli would say the board determines the game, not the player. Once you see the board clearly, you stop blaming yourself for losing a game you were never equipped to win. Car. Car bar. Car bar. Car bar. Car. 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 Underscore. Car. Once you reach this understanding, something inside you changes. You stop interpreting solitude as rejection. You begin recognizing it as a filtering mechanism. Machiavelli would argue that every system removes what does not conform, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. Society is no different. The intelligent man is filtered out because he cannot fully submit to the emotional economy that keeps most relationships stable. And once you see this clearly, the framework collapses and rebuilds. Many men make a critical mistake here. They assume that because most people cannot meet them at their level, no one ever will. That assumption hardens into arrogance or despair. Both are traps. Machiavelli warned against extremes of self-perception. Overestimating your uniqueness blinds you as much as underestimating your value. The truth is colder and more precise. High intelligence does not make you superior. It makes you incompatible with the default settings of social life. Default settings reward agreement over accuracy, loyalty over insight, emotional mirroring over independent thought. When you opt out of these settings, consciously or not, you lose access to casual bonds, and casual bonds make up the majority of what most people call meaningful friendship. The intelligent man craves depth, but depth is expensive. It requires time, vulnerability, and mutual courage. Most people do not refuse depth because they are shallow. They refuse it because depth destabilizes identities they have spent years constructing. Machiavelli understood identity as a mask worn for survival. People do not cling to beliefs because they are true. They cling to them because they are useful. Beliefs explain past choices. They justify current behavior. They protect self-image. When an intelligent man questions these beliefs, even gently, he threatens the mask. And when the mask feels threatened, the person wearing it feels attacked. Friendship dissolves not because of disagreement, but because of exposure. This explains a pattern many high IQ men notice but struggle to articulate. People enjoy them at first. Conversations are engaging. Ideas flow. There is curiosity. But over time, something shifts. The novelty turns into tension. The same qualities that once made you interesting now make you exhausting. Not because you changed, but because sustained exposure removes the buffer of novelty. The group realizes that your way of thinking is not a phase. It is a permanent lens. And living next to that lens feels like living next to a mirror that never turns off. Machiavelli would say people tolerate truth only when it flatters them or serves their goals. Otherwise, they prefer illusion. This is why the people who stay closest to intelligent men are often those who need something specific: advice, strategy, perspective. The relationship becomes transactional even if unspoken. The moment the utility fades, so does the bond. This realization can feel brutal. It strips away sentimentality and replaces it with clarity. Clarity, however, brings another danger: cynicism. When an intelligent man recognizes how conditional most friendships are, he may withdraw entirely. He may decide connection is not worth the cost. Machiavelli would caution against this. Withdrawal is not power. Selectivity is. There is a difference between isolating yourself out of bitterness and conserving energy for alliances that matter. The intelligent man must learn this distinction or risk becoming exactly what society already suspects: detached, cold, unreachable. Machiavelli believed that understanding human nature allowed you to navigate it, not escape it. The intelligent man's problem is not that he has no friends. It is that he expects friends to operate outside human nature. He expects honesty without consequence, depth without discomfort, loyalty without incentive. These expectations are noble but unrealistic. Adjustment does not mean pretending to be less intelligent. It means understanding when intelligence should speak and when it should observe. Power in Machiavelli's world belonged to those who knew when to reveal themselves and when to remain opaque. The intelligent man often fails here. He reveals too much too soon. He exposes his full mind in environments that reward conformity. This accelerates isolation, not because people hate him, but because they cannot place him. Most social groups rely on predictability. Roles are assigned quickly. The joker, the leader, the listener. High IQ men resist roles instinctively. Their minds refuse to shrink into fixed functions. But refusing roles does not make you free. It makes you undefined. And undefined elements in systems are often removed. So the choice is not between authenticity and connection. It is between unconscious authenticity and strategic authenticity. One is raw and unfiltered. The other is deliberate. Machiavelli would not call this manipulation. He would call it wisdom. Knowing how much of yourself to reveal and to whom is not dishonesty. It is self-preservation. Not all loneliness is the same. There is the loneliness of exclusion, and there is the loneliness of transition. The first feels humiliating. The second feels disorienting. High IQ men often experience the second but misinterpret it as the first. They believe they are being rejected when in reality they are between ecosystems. They no longer fit into mass culture, but they have not yet found or built a niche where depth is currency rather than liability. Machiavelli understood niches in terms of courts and inner circles. Power never belonged to the masses. It belonged to small groups bound by mutual interest and shared understanding. The intelligent man who seeks friendship in the crowd will always fail, not because he is flawed, but because the crowd is not designed for him. His peers are rare, and rarity demands patience. This patience feels unnatural in a world obsessed with constant connection. Silence is interpreted as failure. Solitude is weakness. But Machiavelli would flip this. Constant social engagement is often a sign of dependence. The inability to be alone reveals fragility, not strength. The intelligent man's solitude, while painful, is also proof of independence. He does not need validation to exist. Yet independence should not harden into isolation. The danger is subtle. Over time, the intelligent man may begin viewing others purely as predictable mechanisms. He may reduce people to patterns. While accurate, this perspective erodes empathy. Machiavelli warned rulers about this. Seeing people clearly does not mean seeing them without humanity. Power without empathy leads to miscalculation, and miscalculation leads to downfall. True mastery lies in balance. The intelligent man must learn to navigate shallow waters without drowning in them, while reserving depth for those capable of meeting it. This requires restraint, something intelligence alone does not guarantee. Intelligence often undermines restraint because it creates the illusion of control. You think because you see more you can move freely, but social reality is not moved by insight alone. It is moved by timing, perception, and emotional leverage. Machiavelli would tell you this: your mind is a weapon, but a weapon drawn at the wrong time invites attack. Friendship is not a battlefield, but it follows similar dynamics. Reveal strength too openly, and others feel threatened. Conceal it completely, and you become invisible. The art lies in controlled revelation, letting others discover your depth gradually rather than confronting them with it all at once. Underscore, allo, underscore, fu underscore, allo, allo, underscore, tu underscore, allahu, allu, underscore, underscore, underscore. When intelligent men finally internalize this framework, something unexpected happens. They stop chasing friendship as a goal. They focus on purpose, mastery, and direction. And paradoxically, this is when alignment begins to occur. Not in crowds, not through constant socializing, but in moments of shared work, shared struggle, shared creation. Machiavelli believed that bonds forged through necessity were stronger than those forged through sentiment. Modern psychology confirms this, but Machiavelli understood it centuries earlier. Your future connections will not look like conventional friendships. They will be fewer, quieter, more intense. They will not require constant contact. They will survive silence. They will tolerate disagreement. They will not demand performance, but reaching this stage requires enduring the void without numbing it, without blaming others, and without betraying yourself. It requires understanding that loneliness is not always a signal to change who you are. Sometimes it is a signal that you are being reshaped for a different level of interaction. Here is your challenge for the next 24 hours. Do not try to connect. Do not seek validation. Do not explain yourself to anyone. Instead, observe. Watch how people bond around you. Notice what they reward and what they punish. Notice who asks questions and who performs answers. Notice where depth is welcomed and where it triggers withdrawal. Do this without judgment, without resentment. Just observe. Because once you see the board clearly, you stop playing the wrong game. You stop expecting depth in shallow water. You stop revealing yourself to those who cannot hold what you offer. You begin conserving energy for the rare moments when someone capable appears, and when that moment comes, you will recognize it not because it feels comfortable, but because it feels honest. The silence you are sitting in right now is not emptiness. It is the space between who you were and who you are becoming. Most men fill that space with noise because they cannot bear the weight of transformation. But you are not most men. You see too much to go back. And if you can endure this threshold without collapsing into bitterness or arrogance, you will emerge with something most people never develop: the ability to connect without compromise, and the strength to walk alone without resentment. Machiavelli did not write for the masses. He wrote for those who could see past illusion. If you have made it this far, you are one of them. The question is no longer why you have no friends. The question is whether you are strong enough to let the old framework die, so the real one can be built, and whether you will spend the next 24 hours watching the game clearly, instead of trying to win it blindly.